Hi guys, I am so glad you're here with me watching this video today because I have a topic that is so important. I see it as foundational for learning as we as parents are taking on the education of our children, and that is the topic of reading. As excited as we might be about getting our kids to read, it can be a struggle when it comes time to figuring out what books we should introduce our kids to, what level they're ready for, what kinds of books are the best for our kids. And those are tricky questions, but they have some really simple solutions that I'm going to share with you today to make this journey towards reading a fun and exciting one for you and your kids. So let's start out and talk for just a minute about why reading is so important. And I know you know reading's important, but it's important to understand the reasons why, because that can help us when things get tough, that we understand we need to keep pushing forward and not give up on helping our kids read. So the first reason reading is so critical is that it's one of the main ways we can learn. And you will look at any profession out there, and it usually comes down to reading some material to figure out how to achieve the goal in that profession. And there are many professions where it's hands-on is necessary, but usually there's some kind of reading of a manual or a textbook. Even pilots have to have some ground instruction before they can fly. And car repairmen need to learn to read different manuals and how to take care of different cars. So if we help kids love reading from an early age, they'll be better prepared to learn a variety of subjects and achieve what they want to achieve in their lives. The next reason reading is so important is because it widens our horizons. It lets us experience life from lots of different viewpoints, from different countries, even from different times in history, in ways that if we had an unlimited budget, we could never possibly experience all the different ways of life and things that we could experience through reading. Reading is also a healthy escape, and with how stressful life is these days, we need that and our kids need it too. And some people enjoy video games or sports or different escapes, and there can be arguments for and against each of these. And let's just not forget about reading as a possibility, because it might be the one thing that clicks for your child that allows them to have some stress relief, to be able to forget about the worries in their own personal life and just escape for a little while into some different world. Studies have actually shown that reading with our children can even lead to better behavior. So that's a great plus for us as homeschool parents when we are there with our kids all day long, and having bad behavior can really have a big effect on our lives and on the education of our children. So introducing some reading time, possibly one-on-one or you reading to your kids, can lead to fewer arguments, fewer temper tantrums, and a happier home. So is just reading anything for the sake of reading enough? I personally don't think so, and I try to be selective about what books my kids read. But why? Why is it important to think about what our kids are reading and not just be happy that they're reading and not worry about it too much? One reason we should be selective is we want to be careful what level our kids are trying to read. If they steer towards texts that are too hard for them, that can be a big turnoff and actually cause them to hate reading, which we definitely don't want. And if they read books that are too easy all the time, obviously this isn't going to challenge them, and it could diminish the potential that they have for learning. We also don't want our kids reading books that have messages that we don't want them hearing. A lot of parents want to homeschool because they want to eliminate some negative aspects of public school, or they don't feel that the lessons being taught in public school align with their family's values. So it would be really sad if we then brought in some of those influences through the books that our children read. So we should be careful and evaluate what our kids' material is before we just hand it to them for their reading. Okay, so now we're on to the fun part, which is figuring out what books our kids should be reading. And obviously there are limitless numbers of books out there, and there are so many wonderful options, including classic literature and more books that are more recently published. So step one to figure out what kinds of books your kids should read is to assess their reading level. So like I've alluded to a few minutes ago, we want to figure out what the appropriate reading level is for our children, and that would be one that challenges them. So it does have some new vocabulary words, some sentence structure that is a little bit challenging for them to read, but it shouldn't be so hard that they can't understand it, because that'll be frustrating and they will not enjoy reading. Believe me, I know from experience, from my own life, that is not a good situation. And what's far preferable is that the texts aren't too easy or too difficult. And there are some ways to do this, and I have some links below and some additional ones in my blog post, which you can find the link to that below, to assessing your child's reading level. And this is going to involve figuring out how many of the vocabulary words they understand, and also, as they read a passage, how much of the ideas did they comprehend from that passage. So those two things go hand in hand together, of understanding what the text is saying and understanding the words in that text. Step two for picking the best books for your kids is to think about what their interests are. They might be interested in animals, or specifically horses or dogs, anything. Whatever animal your kids love, there are books out there about that animal, I promise. It could be an activity that your kids enjoy. It could be sports or even video games. You know, there are books where kids get into video games that can be really fun and captivating for your child because it's something they care about that just clicks with them and captures their interest. And yet, we're still expanding their horizons. We're exercising that mental capacity by challenging them a little bit while getting them to read. Step three to figuring out what books your kids could be reading or should be reading is, as I mentioned before, we want to look at the morality and the morals of the story. Does the book contain the messages that you want your kids reading? And yes, books are going to have characters that do wrong things. But we want to be sure that it's on a level of your child's maturity. But we want to also make sure that the overall message of the story is one that aligns with our family's values. Step four, if we're looking for some ideas and we're just coming up blank, is to check some book lists. And I have links to a few that I enjoy. And actually, I have a list of books that I recommend from our family on my blog. And the second half of this video is actually, I'm really excited about it because we're going to share some of our favorite books with you guys. And I have this chair here because I'm going to invite my kids to come in and tell you personally why they love the books that we love. So check out those links. It's a great idea to just get some fresh ideas that you might not have heard of before. And of course, you can do a search of your own at your library or just online for some books that your family might enjoy. Step five is remember to encourage your children to try new things. So we've identified some of our kids' interests and maybe even some genres of literature that they prefer, and that is great, and that's good to get them started and to get them loving reading. But we also don't want to get stuck in a rut where we're just only reading one kind of book or only reading books on one topic, because there are other things out there that your kids might enjoy, but they're never going to notice if we don't give them the chance to try. So it's nice every now and then to introduce something new. And a big part of this that helps is to make sure that the new books and ideas apply to what you're learning already in school. They can go hand in hand with a unit. For example, if you're learning about the Holocaust, you might read Number the Stars. And then another great technique is to apply the books to your child's life. So ask them how they would feel in that situation, or what they would do differently, or what they can learn from the characters in the book. And this makes the literature really come to life for your child, and even if it's a topic they wouldn't normally have picked for themselves, they'll still enjoy it because it means something to them, because it matters and makes a difference in their life. Step 6, the final step, is assuming that we've already found some books and every now and then we introduce new books to our children, we want to remember to evaluate often and reevaluate how our kids are doing. Do they need to come up in a new reading level? Are they trying to move up in a reading level too quickly? And in those situations, it can be really tricky because we don't want to be too controlling. We want to let our kids make decisions on their own, but we are there as guides, and we need to help them make the best decisions that won't negatively influence their education and their love of reading. So sometimes our kids might try to push themselves too hard or not be pushing themselves enough. And there are some ways that we can handle this, and I've got extra tips on my blog post. Again, follow that link below. But you can address this in sensitive and really simple ways that will not turn your kids off, but also help them understand that that book might not be the best book for them right now. For example, if the book's too hard, and you recognize that, but your child really just wants to read it, you could say, hey, that is a great book. Why don't we read it together? So you turn it into a read aloud time where you explain the difficult words to your kids, and it's another example of a bonding experience for you to come together and improve your relationship and improve their love of learning. And I have more tips and ideas on that if you go to that blog post. All right, welcome to this video on picking the best books for your kids and your homeschool. And I have joining me right now is Eden. He is my 7-year-old son, and he is excited to tell you about one of his favorite homeschool books. So Eden, what is this book that you have?
101 Things You Need to Know About Sharks.
One of your favorites, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what does this book have? Well, it has 101 things you need to know about sharks, right?
Yeah. Right.
Okay. So why do you like learning about sharks so much?
Because I like them.
You like sharks? Okay, tell us some of the things this book has taught you.
To punch a shark in the nose if it's about to attack you.
Okay. So tell us why you would recommend other kids read this book.
Because it helps you learn about sharks and helps you what to do. It helps you to learn what to do if you're in a shark attack.
So have you ever been in a shark attack?
No.
But you go to the beach sometimes, right?
But I got stung by a jellyfish.
Whoa. You need a book about 101 things to know about jellyfish. All right. So Eden loves reading animal books, right?
Right.
And is this book from the library?
No.
This is actually ours?
Yeah.
Okay, because that's one thing Eden does a lot is we'll go to the library and he picks a bunch of books about animals. Sharks, what other animals?
Geckos. Rabbits, vultures, falcons, birds.
And your all-time favorite animal is?
Peregrine falcon.
All right. Well, thank you, Eden. That's a great book. We're going to get his brother in here and see what his favorite book is, right?
Right.
Okay, we're back for more book reviews from the Jones kids. Here is Hot Amaze. He is
9.
9. You knew what I was going to say. And he is going to talk to us about one of his favorite book series. And tell me why we have the iPad here instead of an actual book.
Because we listen to the audiobooks.
Okay. And what is the book series that you want to tell us about, Hot Amaze?
Fablehaven.
Okay, Fablehaven. You know who the author is of Fablehaven?
Brandon Mull.
Right. We love Brandon Mull books. And I think that King might tell us about some more Brandon Mull books. We'll see. But Fablehaven is one of the first book series that we ever listened to on audiobook, right?
Yeah.
And tell us about it. Why do you love Fablehaven so much?
Because some of the characters are really, really funny. Seth and Warren and 2 satyrs called Newell and Doran.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's got satyrs.
Mm-hmm.
So it's actually a fantasy book,
Yeah.
right? And what else does it have in it that makes it fantasy?
Trolls, giants, dragons, orcs, and fairies.
Lots of other things, right? Just so many fantastical creatures.
It makes you want to listen to the second book, and it's like it goes on into.
Yeah, it's got good endings that make you want to hear the next one, right?
Yeah, because they start a new adventure, but they finish the first mission, and then it starts another mission, so you're gonna want to listen to the second one.
Awesome. That's because Brandon Mull is an amazing author, right?
Yep, and the first book is called Fablehaven.
That's right. And right now, our family is listening together to the new audiobook that just came out for Dragon Watch, which is
Book 4.
we're listening to book 4 of Dragon Watch, which is the sequel series to the Fablehaven series, and we recommend that one too. It's been awesome.
Yeah, if you finish all 5 of the Fablehaven books, you gotta listen to the other 4 because then it won't really make sense because at the end they join something and then they start a new adventure. So
All right. And one last question. This is for the moms and dads that are thinking about letting their kids read Fablehaven and Dragon Watch. What would you say to the moms and dads? Why should they let their kids read these books?
um
Do they teach good things?
yeah.
Like, what are some things that they teach?
To really make sure your boyfriend's good.
Okay.
And don't talk to strangers.
Don't talk to strangers. This has been fun. Thank you for joining me. Should we go get King? Okay. There's our Fablehaven audiobook.
Yep, it's got 19 chapters, 9 hours and 3 minutes.
All right, here we are with King. He is 10 years old, that's right. And he's going to tell us about one of the books that he has loved to read. And just like Hot Amaze, King has got the iPad. Why? Why do you have an iPad instead of the actual book?
Because we don't have it.
Well, how did we read it if we don't have the actual book?
We read it
show
on
'em.
bookshelf.
You can show him.
We read it on bookshelf.
Yeah, okay, so it is an audiobook that we used the Bookshelf app. And tell us the name of this book that you chose that's one of your favorites.
Candy Shop Wars.
Okay, written by
Brandon Mull.
Brandon Mull, same author as Hot Amaze's books, Fablehaven. Tell us about Candy Shop War, King.
Okay. Well, in Candy Shop, where at first, the first chapter, it sounds very confusing at first because it shows different. It talks about this person that you see in the book. Well, this is mainly about the 4 kids. They are, go to school, and then they find this candy shop, and there they are, standing by a candy shop woman. She gives them jobs and tells them that she will give them if she gives them candy, she'll give them more candy if they did the jobs.
What kinds of jobs? Are they the kinds of jobs kids should be doing?
No, she told them like crazy jobs, like digging from a graveyard.
Okay, digging from a graveyard. All right, we don't want to spoil any endings, but is it an exciting book?
Yeah.
Okay. And what would you tell moms and dads who are thinking about letting their kids read this book? Why should they let them read Candy Shop Wars?
Okay, it's because it teaches
never talk to strangers.
Never talk to strangers. And
Okay.
they'll be like, here's some candy if you do this. And then,
But kids should say
no.
no, right? Good, King. What else makes this book exciting, though? It's kind of a cool book.
Oh.
Why?
Magical candy.
Okay, magical candy that lets the kids do, like, give us some examples. Like, 1 or 2 things that the magical candy lets them do.
Fly like they're on the moon. But not actually fly, but they can like jump very hard. But they can kind of jump and fly, but. And there's
Good.
another one. There's lots of cool ones. There's even one that they can shock people.
Shock people. That shocked me. Okay. All right, so that sounds like a really fun book. And actually, it is fun because I listened to it too, and I really loved it. And there's a sequel called Arcade something?
Oh, that's the next one.
Candy Shop War Part 2?
Yeah.
Arcade Catastrophe?
Yep.
Is that what it is?
Arcade.
All
Okay.
right.
Oh, and we're thinking we haven't heard, we think that there might be a book 3 sometime.
Yeah, it did make it sound like there would be. So hopefully, Brandon Mole, if you're watching this, write a book 3. We want to see it and hear it. All right. Well, thank you, King, for helping me out today. And thank you for tuning in for some of our family's favorite books. And like this video, please share it and subscribe to my channel. Hope to see you next time. Ready?
Ready.
Here.
I just made it crazy.
I don't want it crazy in